Hey programmers, welcome back to the Forgotten Flutter show. This is Vishal, and in today's episode, I'm going to talk about yet another core Dart concept, that is the list class. So let's start with understanding what is a list. So a list is a collection of similar kind of objects. It can be integers, it can be strings, it can be booleans, it can also be user defined classes. You must have heard the term list before when we are using row and columns. So the children property of rows and columns are list of widgets. That is, we have a number of widgets, maybe 2, maybe 4, maybe 10, and we group them together in square brackets and then we pass it to the children attribute of row or the column. So that's what a list is. According to the official documentation, it is an indexable collection of objects with a length. So there are two types of lists over here. There are the fixed length list and there is a growable list. So fixed length lists are the list which don't change their sizes. So let's say we have 10 elements in that particular list. Initially it's going to be 10. It cannot be more than 10, it cannot be less than 10. Next is the growable list, that is, it can grow. So if we have initial list of 10 elements, we can add some elements and make it 15, we can make it 20, we can remove the elements and make it 5 or even 0. So with that said, let's head over to Dartpad and define our own list. Here we are in Dartpad. I have the main function and here I have the console where I'm going to get the output. So inside the void main, we are going to create a list variable. I'm sorry, list, and let's name it as LST, and that is equal to square brackets colon, and inside the square brackets I'm going to define my elements. So let's say I have these integers 10, 20, 30 and 40. So these are my elements and I have just defined a list. So let's print out this list. For that I'm just going to use the print statement, and that is going to be LST, and let's run this code and it gives me the list in the output, the same one that we defined over here. So that is how you define a list. Let's go back to our documentation and see what more we can do with lists. Next we can see that lists are iterables, that is we can iterate through the list, that is go through each element of the list one by one and do something with it. We'll see that in a moment. So next you can see that we have some constructors, properties and methods. So list is not kind of a primary data type, it's a class. So a class has a constructor, it has some properties and it has some methods. So constructors are basically some special kind of functions that we use to initialize an object of that type of class. So here we are creating an object of list class. So here are the different constructors in the list class. We are not going to see all of them, but we are going to see some important ones. So the first one that I want to show you is the list.filled constructor that will create a non-growable list by default of certain length. So let's get back to Dartpad and replace this code with list.st, and that is going to be list.filled, and it needs initial length. Let's have the documentation over here. So it needs the length of the list. So let's have a small list of 5 elements. Next we need the fill value, that is the value that is going to be stored in this list. So let's say we have hello stored in it, that's a string, and that's about it. Let's print this kind of list. So now it has created a list with 5 hellos written in it. Let's try to add some elements to this list. So for that I have the list.add method, and inside the add method I'm going to pass, let's say word, a different string from what we have in this, and if we try to run this we are going to get an error, that is unsupported operation add. That's because the list is by default a fixed list, that is it is not going to grow. Similarly we cannot also remove elements from it. It has to be 5 all the times. So what we can do with this kind of list? We can actually change the contents of this list. So let's say I want the second index to have word instead of hello. I can definitely do that. So I'm going to do LST, and on the second index I want it to be word. So that's equal to word. And now if I try to print this kind of list, I'm getting hello, hello, word. Remember that the indexes here start with 0. So this is index number 0, that's hello, index number 1 that's another hello, and index number 2 that's world that we just set here in line number 3. So by default the filled constructor creates a fixed size list, but it is possible to make it a growable list by using the growable parameter and setting it to true. Let's have the growable parameter and set that to true. And now if we try to add the element list dot add, and let's add world, that is very happily going to append that to the list. And there we go. So now if we want to see the length of our list, we have to print lst dot length, that is one of the properties of our list, and if we are going to run it, it is going to be 6 instead of 5 that we defined over here. We can also remove certain elements using the remove method. Let's try to remove hello, and that is going to remove the first hello that it will occur to the compiler. So it has definitely removed the first hello, and now you can see the length of the list is 5. Let's try to remove another one, and that's going to remove another hello, and now the length of the list is 4. That is, if we use this growable parameter and set it to true, we can have list of any length. Let's move on to another constructor, that is the list.generate constructor. So this construction is used to generate a list of a given length using some kind of function. So let's go back here. I actually needed some part of that code, but fine, I'm going to define everything again. So we have list.generate, and we are going to generate up to 10, and the function here is going to be an anonymous function with one parameter, that is the index, and it is going to return, let's say, square of the indices. So that's index into index, and let's print this list and see what we get. So here we go, we get the square of the indexes. So what actually is happening over here? So this is the maximum length of our list, that is 10, and the generate constructor is going to take one index at the time, that is, it is going from 0 to 10. It is going to pass the values over here, and then this particular function is going to square that value and add it to the list, just like that. So in the range 0 to 10 we have 0, 0 goes in, it's 0 square, that's 0, all the way up to 10, but not including 10, that is, it is going to go until 9. So that's why we have 9 into 9, that's 81 as the last element. So whatever number you put in, that's, let's say you put in m, it is going to go from 0 to m minus 1, and you can do all kinds of stuff over here. So that's the generate constructor. Let's go back to the documentation and explore some of the properties. So under properties we have a lot of properties over here. Let's talk about some of them. So let's have a look at first property that we got here, and it's literally first. So let's get back to Dartpad, and I'm going to clear out this list and replace it with a something that we can actually see over here, that is 10, 20, 30, and let's have some duplicates, 10, 10, and some numbers that are not multiples of 10, like 7, 23, 24, and let's say 14, that's multiple of 7. Okay, so let's print list dot first, and that is going to get me the first element in this list, and that's 10. Next we have the is empty property, that is going to return true if the list is empty, otherwise it's going to return false. And similarly we have the is not empty property, that is going to return true if the list is not empty. So in this case our list is not empty, so this thing should be returning true, and it does return true. Next we got the last, that returns the last element, Then we got the length property. This property is very important because we are going to use it more frequently in our actual applications. So that is just going to print the length of the list that we have over here. So in this case, I don't know how many elements I have here. Okay, there are 9 elements, and that's about it. So we are going to use this thing a lot when we use list views and grid views. Next, to the methods. We have a lot of methods over here, but we are only going to focus on some of the most important ones. So starting with the add method that we just saw a few minutes ago, that is going to add an element to the list. Then we have the add all method that is going to add a list to the end of the other list. So here we add only one value using the add method, and in the add all method we are going to append multiple elements to our list. So that's the difference between the two. Next we have the asMap method, and let's see what this does. So we have this list, and let's have asMap, and if we run this, oh just a second, and as you can see over here we get something called as a map. So map is kind of a dictionary. It is going to map some values to some index. So here we can see that the value 10 is mapped to index 0, value 20 is mapped to index 1, and so on until value 14, that is index to 8. So we get a key value pair for the elements over here. Okay, then we have the clear method that will clear the list. It will remove all the objects and return a empty list. Then there is the contents method that is going to return true if the list contains a certain element. Next, we have the element at method. This will simply return an element at that particular index. So if we want element at index number 6, I'm going to do element at 6, and that is going to return me the element at index number 6, that is 23. Well, that's one way to do, but we can also just have a square bracket and mention the index number in that. If we want the sixth element, we can do this just fine. Next, we have the for each method. So this is very interesting method. So this is very important method as well. Even this method we are going to use a lot in our actual Flutter applications. So what this method will do is, let's actually code it first. This is the list dot for each, and again this for each method is going to take a anonymous function, and it is going to have an element as the parameter. We can do all sorts of stuff with the element that we have got from the list. So let's actually have a curly brace and do a lot of stuff over here. So let's say for example these are some radius of a circle. So let's calculate its area. So double area, and that's equal to pi r square. So that's 3.14 into element into element, and let's print the area. And if I run this code, I'm going to get area of all the elements in this list. So the first element here is 10. So we have 3.14 into 10 into 10, and that's equal to 314. So how does this work is, the for each method is going to take each element from the list. It is going to assign it to the element parameter of this function, and this function is going to perform certain actions that we define in the curly braces, and then we are going to just print it over here. So if we want these values in some other list, what we can do is we can create another list over here and name it areas and initialize it to an empty list. And instead of printing the area over here, what we are going to do is areas dot add area, and after for each we are going to print the areas list. And now if we run that, we are going to get the list of areas that we calculated with the lst list as the radius of the circle. And that's what is the for each method, and it is going to be very useful in our Flutter applications. Next is the getRange method, and let's try this one as well. So I'm going to print list dot getRange, and let's start with 3 up to 6, and let's see what we get over here. And we are getting 10, 10 and 7. So let's calculate the indices over here. So 10 is index number 0, 20 is index number 1, 30 is index number 2, and 10 is index number 3, and that's where we start our list. So it's 10, 10 and 7. So that's 3, 4 and 5. So what getRange is going to do is it is going to start from a given number m, and it is going all the way to n minus 1 if n is the last element that we want. And it is going to return something called as iterable. This is not a list clearly. You can see we have round brackets over here, so that is something called as a iterable data type. Moving further, we have the index of method that is going to return the index of the element that we are searching for. So we can put in 10 over here, and we can start the search from, let's say, 5th index. So it is going to give me the index of the first occurrence of 10 after index 5 in that particular list. Next we have the insert method that is going to insert the elements at a specific position. So let's go back to Dartpad, and let's say I want to insert an element between these two 10s over here. So I'm going to use the insert, and what index do we have over here? We have 0, 1, 2, 3, and we want to insert on the 4th index, and let's insert 50. Let's run this. Okay, I should not be printing this thing. I should have this statement outside the print statement, and just print that thing separately. Okay, I just missed the semicolon again. And now you can see that we have 50 in between 10 and 10. So that's how the insert method works. Next we have insert all, that is similar to add all. Instead of inserting one value, it is going to insert a list of values after the given index. Next we have the join method that is going to take all the elements and join them together in a string. So the remove method is going to remove the first occurrence of the particular value. We just saw this particular method a few minutes ago when we were removing hello from our list. Similarly, we have remove add that is going to remove an element from the specified index. Okay, then we have the sort method that is going to sort the list in some order. So let's head back, and we have this list, and let's sort this list dot sort. And if I remove these things, this is going to be a sorted list. Okay, and now you can see that the list is in ascending order. You can also define a function to sort the thing in a particular order and have these numbers in descending order. We just have to do list dot reversed. That is another property of list, and we will have a descending list. There we go. Coming back to our documentation, we have the toSet method, and what this is going to do is this is going to remove all the duplicates from our list. So I'm going to remove this particular part, and I'm going to have list dot toSet. Set is another data type that we have over here, and what it actually is, it is a kind of a list but without the duplicates. So as you can see, we have 10 over here, again we have 10, so we have 2 10s, we have 3 10s over here. And this method is going to do is it will remove the duplicates and only keep the single thing. So we have this set, and you can see it is in curly braces. Also, this is highly unordered. Sets are not indexable, that is you cannot call in set 2 and expect to give it 30. list dot to set, and if you want this to be a list, what we are going to do is we are going to call the dot to list method. That's another method in our list class, and that is going to convert it to a list. Okay, so what next we have? We have some operators. So the plus operator, we can concatenate two lists together. So we have list 1 and list 2. So list 1 has like 10, 20 and 30, and list 2 has 40, 50, 60. And if we do list 1 plus list 2, we are going to get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60 in a single list. So that's about the plus operator. Then we have this equal to operator that we use to check if the two lists are equal to one another or not. So that's about the list class that I'm going to talk about to you today. If you are interested in exploring these all methods by yourself, feel free to do so. You can run this on Dartpad or something. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to the Forgotten Programmer for more videos.
Keep coding, and I will see you in the next episode.